Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Jeff Walker, and I just really want to take a moment to welcome you all to what is going to be a spirited conversation with some heavyweights in the live entertainment industry. It is absolute pleasure to be sitting down with people who come from the production side of the entertainment industry, who come from the management side of the industry, who come from producing some of the live entertainment festivals that are global festivals part of the industry. We also have legacy on this Zoom meeting and call today with Shay Mayfield. With that being said, this today is about it's a celebration of excellence for Black History Month. This roundtable discussion is going to touch on a lot of topics. Mostly, we want to celebrate our guests today. So what I'm going to do is just say their names and introduce them. And then they're also going to take a moment to kind of just give you a quick little bio about who they are. So today, our guests are first, we'll do the ladies first. Dion Harmon from Jesse Collins Entertainment. Tina Ferris from Afropunk. Dennis Ashley from ICM Partners. Jonathan Azu from Culture Collective. And Shay Mayfield from the great legacy family of Curtis Mayfield. So Dion, why don't you start us off and just welcoming and give us a little bit of an insight as to who you are.
Sure. My name is Dion, as Jeff said, super happy to be here. I'm Executive Vice President of Content and Strategy for Jesse Collins Entertainment. We produce a lot of unscripted and scripted content and some live shows. A little bit about me, I've been in this business, gosh, I'm about to age myself, but almost 20 years now. So it has been everything from the Oprah Winfrey Network to MTV, and I've been at JCE for about the last 9 years. So I think most recently I was a producer of the Super Bowl halftime show, which I'll talk about today, and really happy to be here.
Awesome, thank you, Dion. Miss Tina Ferris.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. My name's Tina Ferris. I am owner and operator of Tina Ferris Tours. And I am pivoted into my digital media space. I've been tour managing for 20 plus years, but due to COVID, some of that has stopped, a lot of it, most of it, all of it. And thus I have leaned further into my production skills. So now I'm a digital producer. My clients include Afropunk, Girl Trek, and as always, my brothers, The Roots. Thank you for having me.
We're excited to have you, Tina. Thank you so much. Mr. Dennis Ashley.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dennis Ashley. I'm a partner at ICM Partners, which is a talent agency. I've been in the agency business, wow, close to 30 years now. So it's I've seen and done a lot. Been blessed to have the career that I have had, and still going strong. So anyway, I appreciate the opportunity to be on this panel and with all my other esteemed guests. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Dennis. We're happy to have you here. Mr. Jonathan Azu.
Hey, everybody. Jonathan Azu, founder of Culture Collective. My background is I started in college, producing shows, and then I went into radio, working at CBS Radio for many years in New York corporately, and then went over to Superfly, which is a production company that puts on Bonnaroo and Outside Lands and a bunch of other great festivals. And then went to Red Light as general manager, which is the largest independently owned management firm in the world. And then 2 years ago, next month, I launched Culture Collective for a variety of reasons, but one of which was to kind of squarely nail the lack of diversity and inclusion and ownership in our business. And I wanted to own my own business like some of the other colleagues that are on the Zoom today.
Thank you, Jonathan. And by the way, perfect segue with the Superfly.
There you go.
So without further ado, Mr. Shay Mayfield.
Hi, my name is Shay Mayfield. It's a pleasure to be here, of course, speaking at the roundtable with all these heavyweights. I am currently the manager of the Curtis Mayfield estate. So all the music rights and the licensing. I take care of licensing to shows as well as sampling or movies and things of that nature. I also do a podcast on Facebook Live weekly, which I tell a little bit of personal stories and, of course, keep the music of my father's legacy alive and try to expand it onto a much new generation, so to speak. So of course, it's a pleasure to be here.
It's absolutely incredible to have you here, Shay, and the rest of our guests. I'm excited for today's conversation. This is going to be, I'm a yapper a little bit, so this is going to be an easy, open forum for us all to dialogue with one another. A really big thank you to Polestar for giving us this platform today to speak on. I want to thank Andy Gensler, who's been instrumental in making sure this all comes together. An issue was just released on Polestar, which really celebrated Black History Month and gave an opportunity to talk about the great legacies in music from many Rhino Records artists. It gave us the opportunity to talk to Dion specifically about her Super Bowl experience, and then around, Jonathan and what he's doing with the Culture Collective as well. Having Tina be a part of this dialogue and Dennis as part of this dialogue is absolutely tremendous. I think it's a well-rounded opportunity for us to really kind of get to some of the soup and the nuts and bolts of the music and live entertainment industry. With that being said, I want to start at a foundation I think we all can truly respect. I would love to know, so this is a softball question for everyone. Tell me that first live event that you went to that might have sparked so much love and energy in your heart that you said, this is the industry that I need to go into. I'm going to start with you, Mr. Shay Mayfield, because I think you can give us a real interesting perspective just on your upbringing.
Well, I can remember the first live performance that I saw. I had to have been maybe about 7 years old. And I think we had, as a family, drove up to Chicago to attend my older sister's wedding. And on the way back, of course, my dad had, I guess he planned the whole thing out to where when he came back, we stopped at this music festival in Tennessee. We're coming back to Atlanta. And of course, I had no idea he was scheduled to play there, but we stopped there, and it's like an outdoor festival. You had portable stages and trucks and all different kinds of bands playing. And I remember this had to have been the very first time I'd ever seen my father perform. And he went on the stage, started, singing and performing and playing. And I remember just this uncontrollable ear-to-ear smile coming across my face, just actually seeing him like, wow, this is actually what he does. Even though I knew what he did, but I'd never actually seen him get up there on stage and perform live with a band. So I think even though that probably didn't influence me right then and there to pursue this direction, it definitely left an everlasting impression and love and passion for music, I mean, on myself. So that will always remain my very first impression of seeing live performances, and of course seeing my dad perform for the very first time.
Very, very special. Thank you for that memory, because I can only imagine as a 7-year-old to finally put things together. Like, I watched my dad write music and play the guitar and jump on all sorts of instruments at home, but to see it live and in person must have just been absolutely incredible. Tina, would you be so kind to tell us your first live music experience or entertainment experience as a whole?
Hi, that's a good one. Shay, I have some legacy in my family as well. My grandfather, Harvey Fuqua, used to run the streets with Barry Gordy and Smokey Robinson and Sylvester. So my first experience, even meeting my grandfather, I didn't realize it until pictures later on, but I was in one of those Oakland house studios, and Sylvester was recording. So I was there with Sylvester, and really the live performances, I only got to see my grandfather when he was on the road. So that would be backstage at a Smokey Robinson concert, probably 81 or something like that.
By the way, see, Smokey Robinson on his own, which is my mother, if she happens to be listening today, Smokey Robinson, she did an interview with Smokey back in like 1965 with the Miracles. Wow. And she just reminded me of that the other day. And because my mom is an archiver of her own notes, I'm almost positive that she has the press clipping somewhere still. So I need to have her send that. So having that Smokey Robinson experience is big in my family. Dion, your first musical live entertainment event?
Definitely Michael Jackson. It was 1988, Dallas, Texas, Reunion Arena. My mom took me, I think it was the Bad Tour. My mom took me, she was pretty far along pregnant with my little sister, Kristen. And I just remember, I was 10 at the time, they had all of these crazy lasers and we were kind of up towards the top and the lasers were just coming through. It was like you could reach up and touch them. My little sister's jumping in my mom's stomach. And it was just this, the music was amazing. Michael was an amazing performer. And I just remember those green lasers. And I don't know, as Chase said, I don't know that was the moment. It wasn't until much later that I actually decided to be in this industry, but I still love lasers and people can tell you I get very excited when we have them on shows. So maybe the tie is there.
Thank you for that. MJ, 1988. MJ Anytime is always special, but that must have been just an incredible experience and eye-opening as a 10-year-old. Dennis Ashley, tell us your first experience that you remember, that you recall.
My first recollection was, I think, a Rick James Tina Marie concert at the Fabulous Forum. So that was some time ago. But where I feel, that didn't really inspire me to get into the concert industry until I went to a show with one of my mentors, Phil Casey. He's the one who kind of brought me to the industry and the agency business and kind of being behind the scenes. When you're a fan or a consumer, you kind of take your seat when they let you, but when you're behind the scenes, you kind of see everything go up. You kind of see what goes into the show. And then you have that moment of, once those lights go down and the fans' anticipation of the artist taking stage, that's the part that I fell in love with. That's when I feel like this was something that I wanted to do, because what you do it for is the fans, the artists and the business people. We do it for the fans to bring them the entertainment. So that was the part that I fell in love with, and it keeps me going to the day.
Wow. Thanks, Dennis. That moment when the curtains are about to open, I can only imagine the goosebumps as an artist, but also as someone who's managed and be able to put that whole production together. You get those same goosebumps before the roar of that crowd happens. That's incredible.
Because most folks don't know what it takes to get that artist on stage. Some of it's good, some of it's bad, but whatever it took, we made that happen. And when those lights go down and that sound ramps up, that's the best part of at least my experiences being an agent and enjoying the music.
Right. It's awesome. Jonathan, tell us your experience. I know you have an interesting one. I hope it's the one that I want to hear.
It's tough. Rick James, Mayfield, Michael Jackson. Then it was the Bad Tour, just to put it out of reach for everybody. So, but when I was in college, I was undecided, not sure what I wanted to do. It was my sophomore year. We drove like an hour and a half to go see George Clinton and the Parliament, P-Funk and the All-Stars perform. And it changed my life. The whole experience of packing the car and going there. And then it was in a big baseball field. And the minute that spaceship dropped from that lighting rafter, right? And then it opened up with the smoke and George walked out. And I said, this is what I want to do with the rest of my life. This is it right here. But I joked in the Polestar article about I didn't know how I was going to tell my parents, this is what I want to do. Right? There's no major for this, but it changed my life, and then that was it.
It's incredible. Now let me ask you a question. When you told your parents, did you frame it in the? So there was a gentleman who had a crazy space costume on, who came down from a mothership. And because of that, Mom and Dad, I have chosen to go into the music profession.
It's like, but you want to go to space? No. I want to be in the music business.
You're going to NASA.
Right. NASA. But what's great though is a year later, I actually produced George Clinton. I actually brought him to my school and did a sold-out show a year later. So it all worked out.
Well, that's actually, that's actually a perfect dovetail, I think, into, the next conversation. And Dennis, you had touched on it a little bit as well about, I always, chuckle when you think about all the things that are going on behind the scenes, behind in the back of the house that is happening, that the fan and the consumer and the audience has no idea that's happening. I would love to kind of just get an idea, Tina, as you've gone through this entire career of being in this industry. Talk to us about the development side of when an idea happens with an artist and you're like, let's produce an actual tour. So Tina, if you could kind of give us that a little bit of the origin of how that happens and maybe some of the logistics around that.
Certainly. You have all of the interested parties. That's how you start. I used to start off, oh, it's just about the artist, but it's not. It's about the management, the artist, the agent, the promoter. It's all of the interested parties and what their ultimate goals are. And the balancing act of the tour manager is to cover themselves from each angle. By that, you want to deliver everything that the artist has visualized himself. Nowadays, because they're on Instagram, they have a different vision of what their act should look like, which translates to cost, which translates to here's what I can actually give you, which translates to here is what your agent actually brought. You're really only doing 3 or 4 shows, which translates to what I can bring home for you. So my job is to get the check, no matter what it is, because I have to pay everybody off. And the logistics, I tell my students, involve like, what did you do today to get to work? If you had to leave to go to work, you woke up at a certain time, you brushed your teeth, you got in your car, you made sure you had gas, you ate, all of the steps that it takes to get you to the stage or to work, to deliver what you need to deliver or perform, and to get back off the stage and go home and pick up the check. So that's what I do. All those logistics, transportation, ground, production, making sure the show is set up so that the artist can get on the stage to deliver what he needs to deliver. And all of those come with a cost.
Right. And that's actually perfect because we have an incredible agent that's on this Zoom as well. Mr. Dennis Ashley, maybe you can kind of connect the dots for us as to what Tina just mentioned.
Well, my job is to get the check too, but from a different angle. Obviously, to make sure that that the artist's expenses are covered, as well as for them to make a profit when they go home. Hopefully, we have more than 2 or 3 shows to do it from, and and then obviously then the other part to it is also working with the team to make sure that everything moves smoothly. So as Tina just said, making sure the artist can get on stage and then ultimately go home with some money. We're all working in that capacity for the artist to make sure that they're getting what they need so they can go home with a profit. And we continue to build. The other part to my job is building the fan base, building the career. And that's the other part to making this important, because when that artist looks good and that one consumer goes home and tells a friend, next time, hopefully 3 more people show up because we've done it the right way. So, so it's getting the check, but also building the touring career.
All right, thank you. That's a lot of it. The communication has to be at the highest level as you guys are trying to produce that and working with the teams that are, everybody has an interested reason as to what they need to get from one another. So before the artist can ultimately actually end up on that stage, all of that back and forth. Nowadays it's done by Zoom meetings, I suppose, before it's phone calls and emails to get there. So the fact you guys are all able to create that from the background and then finally get that production out to the public is tremendous. I want to ask Shay this question because you're in an interesting position now that you're as the keeper, as I like to call it, the keeper of the legacy. So how does it work for you when you're trying to determine the opportunities that are out there for some of the catalog that your father has created and how to keep that in the general public? Like, what is kind of your strategy around whether it's film, TV, whether it's artists that want to cover some of those songs and perform them live? Like, would you be able to give us a little insight into that, Shay?
I mean, basically doing the strategy to try and keep it relevant, and especially to pass it on to a new generation of listeners is getting everything from what it was like as far as physical product to digital streaming as well as digital promotion. So a lot of the things that we try to promote are strictly on a digital, platform, like your social media platforms and your other like streaming platforms and things of that nature. Usually when we get request for say a sample of one of my dad's songs, I mean, you have to kind of vet a lot of them because we've gotten a lot of inappropriate content to where you have to look at it to where that's not how we want his music to be remembered. If you have like a song that's full of profanities or profanity laced and it has like the Pusher Man bass line behind it, you don't want people to hear the original song and then, oh yeah, that's that F you something something song that we heard from so and so. So things of that nature, you have to, I look out for, and you have to basically kind of clear and reject as needed, as well as some of the maybe television shows or movies that we're presented with that also want to clear his music. You have to kind of what we do first and foremost is try to get any music that is performed, that is my dad's music, original music, to be featured, unless, of course, there's special circumstances where we allow different covers to pass and all that. I mean, it's a lot of different things that I had no idea getting into this was involved, that is a part of trying to move this legacy on and keep it relevant.
Right. Thank you for that. There's a lot of little, obviously a ton of nuances within that. And you have to think strategically and long term to make that point that you don't want your father's music to be affiliated with the wrong, artist or the wrong
Absolutely.
TV event or the wrong film. I mean, that is not an easy task. I can imagine it's not an easy task at all. Dion, I would love to, get your insight as to, coming off of, let's see, we're 2 weeks removed from the Super Bowl. And when you think about the logistics that went into that, I want to say towards the end of last year where things ramped up for Jesse Collins Entertainment and you guys had to take on the full, planning of this. Kind of give us a little bit of a overview of what the logistics look like and the numbers of people behind the scenes that were involved in order to make that halftime show with The Weeknd while doing it in the pandemic come off so magnificently.
Well, it's definitely what you said. It takes a village, and it's already, and everyone on here can attest to that, and especially Tina with festivals and Jonathan as well. It already takes a lot to put something like that together logistically. But when you add the element of COVID, that's a entirely new layer of complexity. But not only do you have that, there's the layer of the NFL. And there are all these things I was completely unaware of related to the teams and the players about what you can and can do on the grass. Like there are all of these things, like God forbid you nick the grass and a player trips on it and gets injured. That's way more important than our halftime show. So it was about balancing, the needs and priorities of the NFL, which is their team and their players, as well as keeping everybody safe. We had, even though we had a ton of people, it was less than what you would normally have. To give an example, a normal halftime show, you'd probably have 2,000 people that are part of the process of building this stage a couple minutes after the halftime starts or right before the halftime starts, and then removing all of that like nothing ever happened when it's over. We weren't able to do that. We built the set into the stands, but still the number of bodies and the number of Zooms, I think we talked about this in the article. There were Zooms, creative Zooms with the NFL, Zooms with Pepsi, Zooms with DPS, who is the production company that worked with us on all of the logistics, does a lot of live shows. Zooms with 5-6 pages of people, like you're literally scrolling to see everybody on it. So I think the most important thing was just over communicating, and to Tina's point, making sure that everyone was getting what they needed, whether it was CBS, the NFL, The Weekend, Pepsi, whatever it was. So it took a village, multiple villages to get that done.
To keep everyone happy. And I can only imagine the voices that might have been raised every now and then to make sure that everyone is making sure that they get the best presence possible, that they get the best exposure possible, and to juggle that is a skill in itself. Jonathan, in talking with the fact that you do festivals as well as you manage artists too, give us a little bit of a color and complexion of how that looks for you on your end.
Yeah, I mean, and for us, I mean, and I've been lucky enough to work with almost everybody on the panel, and we as managers really put a blueprint together of the artist's career. We first get a understanding of what success looks like to them, and then we put that plan together and we execute against it, and we look for opportunities, be it hard ticket tour, a festival, an award show, Super Bowl halftime show. Just throwing that out there in the air. You look for those opportunities and you execute against them. And for me, it's really important to do the best business that we can and be the best partner, and not look at it as something that's just all us, all the artists. We want to be a partner with who we're working with to get through it together, and so it's a win-win.
Right. It has to be a win-win situation. When you guys are,
I would like to add one thing, Jeff, and that is, I want to give Jonathan a lot of props because I do work with him on a client, and I remember his focus was he wants to get that client Grammy nominated, and he did everything. So when he talks about the blueprint of putting it together, we were in the forefront of doing that, and he was the mastermind behind that. So definitely want to give him props on that.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Yeah, he's referencing Luke James, who Dennis is the agent for, and Dion was helpful in that process. We played the Soul Train Awards, but it takes. I always talk about the art at the sandbox. I'm like, who's in the sandbox with us, right? Who's playing, right, to get this artist where they need to be in their careers, and that's just as important as the artist, as everybody else is around.
Right. No, it really is a teamwork, and you guys have to have these incredible relationships, obviously on this panel with one another, to help make sure that execution happens, and that the artist at the end of the day is the one who ultimately wins in that situation. That's a lot to do, and that's you guys being strategic and just being good brothers and sisters to make that happen. With that kind of being said, and knowing that this conversation is around Black History Month and celebrating the excellence of all of you in this industry. The industry doesn't necessarily reflect us in the background. And it might more in the foreground, you see us as the talent on stage. How have you all, and maybe we can get a little bit of an idea of how have you all experienced being, faces of color in this industry? And what are some of those challenges or those hurdles? Do you see them in front of you, or do you just continue to blaze right through them? And I would love to start this with Tina, if you could give us a little bit of insight into that as a woman of color in this industry.
They have to get a check, and so do I, right? So I definitely am a blazer right through, and I take a lot of hits along the way. Sometimes I don't even realize the hits that I've taken until I check in with myself later on, because it's busy. And I think we get into this business because for me, I like working like at the drop of a dime. I like having a plan B and a plan C. Like, I am such a fan of Dion right this second, because I'm like, yo, she did that whole thing. And, just being talent on Super Bowl is overwhelming enough. When I went during a snowstorm in Colorado with the Black Eyed Peas, I can't imagine in COVID and actually running it. So when you have all of that, you don't really have time to deal with race. It's there. Don't get me wrong. I used to, probably in my younger years, I spent a lot of time maybe too much time on, addressing people, making sure they respected me, ... But now I just look for a man next to me and say, can you just speak manese to this guy? I don't have time for it, and keep it moving, honestly. Because the bottom line is I got to get it done. I can't have a conversation with somebody and break down about how somebody treated me like a stripper. You know what I mean? So
Right.
it's behind us. I mean, there's lots of women. There's, I won't say there's lots of women. Let me not exaggerate. I think, though, we are put in positions where we work in silos and we don't work together. So we don't know who's out there, and it's even more evident now when I'm getting hired to be the Black person in the room because people are looking out. But I feel like it's more white people doing that than Black people. I've made it a habit. People come to me because I hire Black people all the time, not just during Black History Month, not for Juneteenth, not for Black Music Month. You know what I mean? People will hit me. Everybody on here that I know, I'll be like, hey, you should probably call Tina. She probably got some Black tour managers every time. But that's what I do. You know what I'm saying? This is probably the third time I've been on a Polestar thing only for Black History Month, or only because they need a Black person. So those are the challenges. You know what I mean? When are we all going to talk again? When are we all going to have another panel? Why is it just us on a panel speaking in an echo chamber of other Black people probably watching this? Who's watching this? Some white people watching this? You know what I mean? So yeah, it's behind us, but like, also here we are again.
Right.
In Black History Month.
Right. No, that makes sense. Message to Andy and the rest of the Polestar family. We need to have Tina and the rest of this crew flowing through March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November.
I'm gonna be Black every day, but I'm also gonna still be a tour manager.
Right. But that's and I think that's part of the foundation of this conversation is like identifying the excellence of what you guys do, so more people know that, hey, no, there's some incredible people of color who are top shelf at their job and what they do. So it's a very
right. If you don't see color, then I should be doing a panel in April.
Right, absolutely. Should be doing a panel at all times because of you're being great and you do great work at what you do.
But shout out to Polestar, was top tour manager 2019. I won't front, but you know what I'm saying.
There you go.
I love it. Dion, question for you. How does it feel on a similar thing? You guys were the first Black production company to produce the halftime show, which you're the first, and you definitely won't be the last now. So that's definitely a huge feather in your cap. So kind of tell us how that felt for you and your team.
Well, I'll just clarify. Jesse was the first Black executive producer. We produced it in conjunction with Rock Nation and DPS. So it was not a JCE production alone, just semantics. But I will say to everyone's point, and I just want to piggyback on what Tina said. I think there's this idea that white producers or white professionals can work on anything. A Black show, a Black movie, a Black artist, a Black this. But when it comes to Black executives, Black producers, Black tour managers, you get the Black artists, you get the Black TV shows, you get the Black movies. And there's this perception that Black people can't do white things. And so, it is a big deal for me and for us at Jesse Collins Entertainment to change that perception. I think there was we produced Nashville Squares, which was a game show based off of Hollywood Squares about country music. And we did hip hop squares. And when Viacom came to us and said, hey, we're going to do Nashville Squares based off of hip hop squares, Jesse and I were like, all right, great. Not expecting the next sentence, which was, and you guys are going to do it. And we were like, oh, okay. And so that was a big step. And it was amazing to be on that set and see Black executive producers, Black stage managers, Black talent people managing a show of predominantly white artists and a genre of music that is predominantly white. And I think, you know, us being a part of the Super Bowl was a big step because there was a lot of scrutiny. How is this Black company gonna come in, these Black people come in and produce one of the biggest live events on television? And, you know, so I think it's important for people to see that we do this at a high level. It doesn't matter what color you are, talent and skills are talent and skills. And, you know, I think it is also on us to make sure that we are reaching back and making sure that we give people the opportunities to build the experience so that they can go out and continue to do this work. So it's not such a big deal to be a Black producer, a Black tour manager, a Black agent. It's just normal. It's just a person doing a thing. So.
Right. That's, I agree. We are going to, thank you for that, Dion. I do want to let the audience know that we are opening up for audience questions too. So feel free to send those in, and we'll have some of them throughout the rest of this conversation. Jonathan, you've put a priority on making sure that these artists know where to find us, to find the talented producers, tour managers, agents, managers of color. Can you just talk to us a little bit how you've made that part of Culture Collective's agenda?
Yeah, you know, last year when George Floyd was killed, like a lot of us, you know, on this panel, we started getting phone calls from people I used to work with, you know, having conversations. And it was great. I mean, in the sense that it was therapeutic for me in a way, because I was able to really kind of talk openly. And I'd launched Culture Collective 2 years ago, or a year almost prior to that. And I was very proud in my launch of why I did it as it relates to the lack of diversity and inclusion and ownership in entertainment. And I think it came full circle for a lot of people at that point. You know, fast forward a couple months, companies are making a lot of really impressive commitments to diversify their teams. Blackout Tuesday, you know, companies making announcements about diversifying their boards. And at the same time, I'm looking at what's happening to my friends. They're all losing their jobs, right? They're all being furloughed, they're all being laid off. So I'm like, well, this is really interesting because they're making these commitments, although, you know, the reality of what's happening in the streets is that people can't find jobs. And statistically, people that are underrepresented will have a harder time when this all turns back on. And then I happened to be, you know, on Twitter one night, and I saw that Airbnb had launched a website to promote the people they had laid off. And I said to myself, that's wild, because in our industry, we don't want anybody to know. Companies don't want anybody to know they laid anybody off, right? Here's Airbnb probably stand behind the fact that they had to do this, and these people are rock stars and they should be working. So long story short, I had the concept in my head. I got a call from Gogi Gupta from Gupta Media. Some of you know, does a lot of great digital advertising, minority-owned business. And you know, we were having a conversation about one of the panels I had done on race relations. And I said, Gogi, I got this idea. Just won't leave me alone. This should exist. And he said, listen, if you can pull the team together, I'll throw my services behind it. We'll build it. We'll design it. Clarity PR came on board to help with the PR. And my nephew is a web developer. I leaned on him. Everybody donated their time and resources, and we built the product and launched it. And it's called diversitymusic.org, and it helps connect hiring managers with underrepresented minorities in music. One of the things I heard a lot about from hiring managers was that we want to diversify, but we can't find people. We put jobs up, we don't get applicants, then we need to fill them because the sky is falling, right? So you look in front of you, next to you, behind you, and you pull that person in, and oftentimes that person you pull in is not of color. So this helps really break down that barrier of an HR hiring manager not being able to find somebody of color. And we have a lot of, you know, we're just in version 1 of this, really version 0.5. We have a whole roadmap that's being built out to make an impact, but I'm glad that it was received so well in the industry. It's very much needed. And, you know, as a guy, just building on what Dion was talking about, that, you know, worked at a lot of companies, you know, I found myself to be a C-level executive there, and you look around the room and you're the only one. And the room that you're in is the room, right? It's the CEOs, the COOs, the top 1 to 5 on the Billboard Power 100 list. So it's like, if this is as diverse as the room get, pretty sad, right? So we all need to do steps to make that better.
We're going to take an audience question. Thank you for that, Jonathan, and thank you for giving that that overview. And you said it was diversityinmusic.org. Was that the organization?
Correct. Yep. Correct.
Okay. Noted for that, just so people in the audience can jot that down and look to that as a resource, as a tool for them. There was a question that was around the compartmentalization of genres of music and the history of that, where you have R&B, you have soul, et cetera, et cetera. Does that play a part into only allowing, thinking that what Dion had mentioned around, well, Black people know Black music, Black people don't know anything else but R&B and soul music, as an example. And I want to kind of punt this one to Shay, because historically, look, your father is an iconic singer-songwriter who has numerous huge hits, huge albums around Black empowerment. And have you been able to kind of tie it back into the question, have you been able to take some of those songs and those classics that are written by your father and allow them to spread beyond just the R&B soul charts, as an example? Has it been able to, lack of a better word, cross over to more of the mainstream? And maybe tell us a little bit of history and how you guys were able to do that, or how you look for those opportunities as well.
Some of the songs that I know a lot of people that have heard that potentially have crossed over to the mainstream, like from the Curtis album, Move On Up is one of the more popular ones. Even songs such as Don't Worry If There's a Hell Below is also, crossed over. But one of my biggest surprises that I found was overseas. My dad had a huge audience, and not just Black people audience. He had a huge audience who loved a lot of his songs that were about Black empowerment, his albums and songs that were solely surrounded around Black empowerment, that, people from countries like the United Kingdom and Germany and the Netherlands and all these countries that I would have never thought were huge fans of my dad's music. And they usually tune in like every week when I do my show, and I'm just kind of floored at how many people outside of Black and African American race are requesting certain songs. So I think that even a lot of his songs have already kind of crossed over into the mainstream of other races and other cultures, even though, it might not seem that way here. Here we try to promote a lot of the songs that are not so much solely directed at, some songs that are obviously politically motivated. Those are the ones that in this country anyway don't particularly do well. But songs like Move On Up and Keep On Pushing, songs of empowerment, just general empowerment, have crossed over, very well throughout the whole era, the civil rights to today. And not just my dad's recordings, but recordings with the Impressions as well back in the 60s. Those songs tend to do very well.
Just a little bit of a nod to your father. So Corey Henry, who I manage, is an amazing, phenomenal, lights out instrumentalist and vocalist, and arguably one of the best keyboard players. Is so inspired by your father and what he does. And then Superfly, which is the company that founded Bonnaroo and Outside Lands and other great festivals, was named after him. So if listen, I wouldn't be here ultimately, right? So all love, man, all love.
You appreciate
your father's music is universal. It's inspiring, and it's great to hear that, throughout the globe, that you're getting these messages from the Netherlands, from Germany, of people who are inspired by that music that was written, 4 or 5 decades ago. for an example. So it's absolute testament to the genius of your dad, and I can't wait to hear more. You could have Curtis playing every single day, as far as I'm concerned, in my household. So
They're still in one of all their sets with "Move On Up."
Seriously, come on, man.
Incredible. Mr. Ashley, I want to do just a little smidge of a pivot, but ICM has kind of always been known of being a diverse agency as a whole, and giving opportunities, I think, to managers and executives of color. Kind of just tell us a little about your experience of how you landed at ICM, how the culture of ICM is now, and how you will continue to support the efforts and really their progressive agency in that way. And how things look at the agency going forward. I know there's been a little bit of some movement that happened in the last week. Whether you want to speak upon that, that's great, or if not. But give us a little bit more perspective on ICM in general, and how the company culture is there.
Well, the country, I've been, I guess I can say, fortunate enough to have been at ICM during two different regimes. So when I first started, my early 20s, different ownership, different culture. Definitely, I guess you can call myself a unicorn at that time, because I wasn't the first Black agent to ever, be in the concert business, but there were very few people for me to call on, and I felt like I was blazing trails at that point. Moving into my second stint at ICM, different culture, obviously different ownership, and definitely a different intent to create more diversity and growing leadership for people of color. And even with the change, I think as you noted, first of all, it was a pleasure, and everyone knows Robert Gibbs, he's a great friend of mine, and just watching him mature and grow into this leadership position has been nothing but the best thing in the world for me to see and experience. So, but putting my personal stuff aside, watching how ICM has fostered and wanted to grow and wanted to continue to get better at diversifying has worked. Now we always have to do better. I think the one thing that's very important to me, and I think that mentorship is crucial. So it's not just creating the opportunity, but it's the mentorship. It's making sure that these young candidates get into the room at a high level. So even learning the business, learning deal making, and being in the room with talent at a high level is crucial into building agency in terms of agents. So we need to do better at that. I mean, it's not just on myself as a Black agent, because obviously I'll do it, especially when I'm called upon, or even if I see it necessary. But it's for everybody, for my white counterparts, for everyone to really step up and mentor these young kids, so that they have the confidence that they can step into any room at any level and make deals, because that's the most important thing, to be able to tell the talent, because ultimately we represent the talent, and then for that talent to be able to trust that their representative can call any head of the studio, can get any promoter on the phone, in any walk of life, and whatever they choose to do, they need to be able to have that confidence to be able to walk in that room and talk to that artist in that way. I think that helps grow what we do as an agency.
I wanted to say to that, Dennis, I've learned a lot about my tour management through working with, and not just because Dennis is on here, but like ICM is my favorite agency, mostly because of how the Rob Gibbs and the Dennises and the Mitches and the people who work with you. Like, I feel like we're friends outside of this. I feel like they look out for their musicians, their artists, and they really work with some teams, a lot of teams. What I was going to say, you were asking what were some of the ways that we are not attacked, but there's some key words that are out there. So keywords like, oh, you need to step it up, or
Mm.
now that you're at this level, we need you to ... And then that's when they usher in all of the white people. You know what I mean? And
Mm.
so I feel like I know so many people at ICM that we've been raised together, that they still, you know, they can identify the team and they are inclusive of the team. And it's not necessarily, let me get this person out of here, but they work with the team. And I think it's a testament to how this industry has grown.
And then the other part to that is, having Black executives helps, breed having more Black vendors, more, people of color on the road with the artists, all
Right.
those different things that feed the business and feed what I call the ecosystem of the business. So all those things are important in growing and doing what we're talking about.
It's the mentorship piece across any industry is hugely important to success of those next people who come behind you. And to that, Dion, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about some of the programs that you guys do or who you work with just on the nonprofit side around mentoring those next group of executives and producers of color.
Sure. At Jesse Collins Entertainment, we've always wanted to give kids the opportunity, because a lot of times you'll find, even with entry level positions in this business, you're expected to come with a level of experience. And, people have had these internships and all of these opportunities, and it's not always available. So, 2020 was a mess, as everyone knows, and most of our show production looked like this. But prior to that, it was really important to us on every single show that we produced, especially the award shows, BET Awards, Hip Hop Awards, Soul Train Awards, to have a group of interns that we got mostly from HBCUs that were in the city where we were shooting, and choosing like 10 kids, finding out what they were into, placing them in the writers department, in accounting, in legal, in the truck with the directors, at the producers table with us, with talent, so that they can see not only people who look like them doing a job, but be able to put on their resume that they worked in the talent department at the BET Awards. They were in the truck with the directors and ADs at the Hip Hop Awards. And so, providing that real world experience, and then also just helping them to build relationships through that, has been really, really important to us as a company. And I'll just say one full circle moment. There was a kid, his name is David Fortune, who was he was an intern with us in Atlanta. I believe it was on UNCF or Hip Hop Awards, I can't remember, but he was an aspiring filmmaker. We put him in the truck. He had an amazing experience. I think he came back for the next show. Fast forward to, we were in ABFF in Miami at a panel for the Bobby Brown story. And he comes in and he's like, I just wanted to thank you and Jesse for this opportunity, because I'm here with a film that was accepted into ABFF. I'm showing my film. And the reason I was able to do that is because you guys believed in me and gave me the opportunity and showed me that I could do it. So like, I was like bawling, but seeing that, I mean, that's what we have to do. So that's really what it's all about.
That the mentorship piece is key, and then what a beautiful thing to see it come full circle for you as well. And Dennis, and talking about the mentorship that's happened there, as well as the ICM. I want to give you all, just as we're coming down to like the last 5 minutes or so, I want to give you all just like the last minute to leave some parting thoughts of what you want to see happen in your respective industries, and what you want to see specifically in the music industry going forward as it pertains to inclusiveness, and how we wanted to see more diversity and continue that. So why don't we start with, we'll start with Jonathan, and then we'll go to, and then the rest of you guys can just jump in from there.
Yeah, I mean, I think, for me personally, I think it's about how, when you wake up in the morning, what kind of impact you want to have, and we all do amazing jobs with artists we work with and the shows we produce. But when you wake up in the morning, what's the impact that you want to have on your industry? And Everyone at companies out there needs to think about that. And it starts at the top too, for a lot of these organizations. The commitment needs to be at the executive level. And I think it doesn't need to be passive, meaning, I think Tina brought this up, just for Juneteenth or just when a tragedy happens in this country, right? It needs to be 365 days a year. And if that commitment's not happening at the top, there needs to be that groundswell there to push it to happen. And if it doesn't happen, we need to be supportive of people that want to make other decisions professionally and help them do that, support each other.
Excellent. Tina, your thoughts?
I think it's necessary for us to also have more commune amongst ourselves and our own groups so that we can see what's coming down the pipeline, and maybe share a little bit more within the resources, so we're not vying to be the only Black production companies that ... you know what I mean? But maybe if we have some, I don't know, now that we're all on Zoom, we could probably do some happy hours or something and see what's coming down the pipeline and really, push each other. We know what we have to face, yeah?
Right.
So we might as well
keep on building community.
And keep building community, yes.
Right. Keep on building that community and opening up each other's networks and not looking at it as, competition, but more or less as, look, let's work together as a team to provide opportunities for one another. Starting from the beginning of it.
What, like, I can't afford this person, so I'm not going to call her. Let me find somebody else. You know what I mean? Capitalism has a lot to do with it. So sometimes it hinders us from being able to reach out to each other. But I think I see my peers, and my peers are doing lots of great things. And it doesn't mean that we can't work on something separate altogether, even if we're going towards the same goal or the same movie or the same, tour.
Right. Dennis.
I think, first of all, I think everyone has talked about community, or at least people prior to me. I think really supporting the community, really growing that community, and then the other part to it is not losing the momentum on diversity. I think sometimes it gets lost, the conversation gets lost. I mean, obviously, you know, um, I think it was pushed to the forefront with the George Floyd of it all and the protest, Black Lives Matter protest. Um, I think, the whole industry wide, it became, diversity became, that catchword. But we can't lose that momentum. We can't lose those conversations. And I think we have to continue to push forward that, along with building our community. I mean, the community of support. That means our managers supporting agents, our agents supporting promoters, and then and all the other vendors and production folks and all those kind of things, and growing a healthy business from every standpoint, so that we can work in any capacity. It just doesn't have to be wherever your passion takes you. You should be able to go into that area. So if you like country music, you should be able to go there because you were able to, cut your teeth and learn the business at a certain level. If you choose to, it doesn't just have to be Black music, but this should be something that we should be able to support, a resource that we can support each other and grow and go forth and pay it forward and all the way down the line. So that's those are my thoughts.
Excellent. We're going to go with Dion, and then we're going to finish up with Shay.
Okay, I'm just going to piggyback on what Tina and Dennis said, and it may be repetitive, but it's important. I mean, the community piece, and also the misconception, the crabs in the barrel mentality that there can only be one Black this, one Black show, one Black female rapper, whatever it is, it's false. There is enough to go around. There are enough opportunities for everybody. And, what I love about this moment is that it seems like buyers are recognizing that the Black voice is not one voice. There are many experiences, many perspectives, many styles, many genres. And so I think that that is helping open people's eyes, that you can take whatever your passion is, whatever your story is, and tell it, even if there's another Black woman telling a story that you feel might be in the same subject matter, whatever it is. And so just keeping your eye on the prize and doing what is true to you, no matter what kind of the message is outside of it. And even when, you know, as a woman, and I'm sure Tina has dealt with this, when I'm being called sweetheart and baby on a set where I'm an executive producer, or, you know, whatever, or if white executives are trying to talk to you about what Black History Month means or what Black culture is or should be, don't get mad and give up. Just keep pushing, keep focused, and you'll get through, and the work will speak for itself.
Ooh, I needed that word today. Thank you.
Listen.
Mr. Mayfield, the whole keep pushing, it couldn't have been said any better, but if you would like to, you know, kind of put a bow on it for us, we would appreciate it.
I mean, I think what I would like to see the future of the, especially the industry of what I do, is more artists being more educated in what the actual industry is. So you'll have the music industry, of course, is notorious for chewing people up and spitting them out. Now, what I've seen, what I've come across is, you know, you'll see a lot of people who basically judge you on what your, you know, your appearance or whatever, or your title, and they'll be dismissive. But I think that we should have the more education of the inner workings of the music industry, so we don't get taken advantage of constantly, which, you know, I see it several times, and it happens all the time. And I know it's not just the music industry, it's the entertainment industry as well. That's one of my biggest things that I just like to see happening. More young people of color actually learning the industry and doing good for one another.
Thank you. Look, we're going to wrap this up, but I want to thank each and every one of you. I want to thank, first of all, the audience for tuning in. I want to thank Polestar again for providing the platform. I really want to extend, you know, big, huge thanks to the panelists for today: Dion Harmon, Shay Mayfield, Dennis Ashley,
and Jeff,
Tina
we want to
Fair.
thank you. Jeff, we want to thank you as well.
Oh, appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Dennis. Thank
Sorry
you.
to cut you off,
Jonathan. Thank you, guys. No, it's fine. Thank you. I'll take that. Jonathan, I want to thank you for your time as well. I'm hoping that this is a conversation that, again, to Tina's point, maybe 30 minutes ago, that we continue this dialogue, and it has to go on, not just during a specific 28-day month of Black history. And to continue that dialogue and to take this, the audience who's listening right now, to take this idea of community, to take this idea of mentorship, to take that where there's no more crabs in the barrel anymore, you know, to take those opportunities that we're going to work together across racial lines, across genres of music, and just do the best job that we can do for the artists that we represent, the clients that we represent, the partners that we work with on any individual production that might occur. And know that these faces here, while there's 5 Black faces here, there is that times 500 that are actually out there. And do the work on finding the best talent of color that is out there, so we can continue to have an impact that goes across racial lines. With that being said, again, thank you all. Thank you, Polestar. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Have a beautiful weekend, and happy Black History Month and happy Black History Year.
Thank you.
Look.
Yeah.
Thank you.